I used to be so excited about moving into a new place. After all, it's what I always wanted. Ever since I was a little kid, it was my dream. Having a place just for myself. To give a little bit of context, I always lived in a house full of people where I had no privacy whatsoever. I'm the third out of 5 children that my mom had. But we didn't grow up living with my mom and her boyfriends or even husbands. No, my siblings and I grew up with our grandparents. It's a very weird family dynamic. And I remember feeling overwhelmed every single day. And that's why as soon as I had the chance to move out of my grandparents' place, I did not hesitate, and I packed all my stuff and got out of there. Sadly, I just realized I should have been more careful. I should have been more patient, and I should have thought better. When I moved out of my house 2 weeks ago, I was just a 19-year-old without money. I work a full-time job at Subway, but I don't earn much, just enough to get by. Most of my siblings don't live at my grandparents' house anymore except for my sister Caitlin, who is 24, and still lives at Grandma's with her useless boyfriend Todd and their 2 children. My grandparents are too old now. Granddad technically just sleeps the whole day, and Grandma is very sweet and quiet. And that's why Caitlin and Todd run the house the way they want. Our house was always a mess, perhaps even worse than when we were little. And to make things worse, my sister's boyfriend won't stop flirting with me. It started with simple things as staring at me and complimenting me, but it escalated from there. One night, about 2 weeks ago, I was peacefully sleeping after a long day of work, and it must have been 4:30 in the morning already when I suddenly heard a noise. My first reaction was to sit up on my bed, and that's when I saw Todd. He was standing by the door. I asked him what he was doing in my room, as I tried to cover half my naked body. He excused himself, saying it was a mistake. And according to him, he was trying to go check on his kids. He immediately got out of the room and closed the door. But I didn't believe him. There's no way he could have confused the rooms. Their children sleep on the 2nd floor, right next to his room, and I'm the only one who sleeps on the 1st floor. Now I know Todd is an alcoholic just like my sister, but that's no excuse. I had the feeling that Todd was trying to hurt me, and I didn't want to stay long enough to find out what would happen. After all that, I couldn't go back to sleep and decided to start getting ready to go to work. I put on my uniform, brushed my hair, and waited for a couple of hours until it finally got lighter outside. Afterwards, I walked around some parks until it was time to go to work. That morning, my job was pretty normal, nothing out of the ordinary. I work in a very quiet and modern neighborhood, one of the newest ones in town. We normally get clients early in the morning or at lunchtime, but aside from that, it's really quiet. My friend Marjorie was having her shift at the same time, and we were just chilling when a lady entered the shop. She was a tall, skinny young woman, but the weird thing is that she looked very stressed out. Her short blonde hair was tangled and going everywhere. She was wearing an oversized hoodie that looked very sweaty with some pajama pants, but she wasn't wearing any shoes. Her feet looked rough, almost bleeding, and taking a better look at her face, she had very pronounced bags under her eyes, and even though she was thin, her face was just way too gaunt. Marjorie and I approached the young woman who kept looking at the glass walls at the front. She looked as if she was trying to run away from someone. And after a few minutes, we managed to calm her down and gave her a glass of water. Taking a better look at her, we noticed she was actually kind of pretty. She told us her name was Leah. We asked her what was going on and if she was in danger. She replied by saying that she wasn't. After half an hour of being with us, she apologized and said that she was under a lot of stress. Since it was almost the end of my shift, I offered to take her to her apartment. Leah agreed, and we left the shop. Her apartment was only 6 streets away, so it wasn't such a long way. The apartment was technically a house divided in 2. It was a small apartment, yet beautiful. Way too different than the dirty old house where I lived. Leah looked rather frightened as she entered the place and wouldn't stop looking everywhere. I took her to her room for her to rest, but she wanted to speak with me for a while. She told me she was an aspiring model. She even showed me some pictures and I was very impressed by her beauty. However, I was more impressed by the differences in her pictures. She still had a beautiful face, but she looked very tired, almost sick. Meanwhile, the Leah of the pictures looked completely healthy. It was even weirder when I noticed some of those pictures were just taken a month ago. She started to ask me questions about my life, and I told her everything about it. When I mentioned I wanted to move out, her eyes got brighter. "Why don't you move here with me?" she asked enthusiastically. "What do you mean?" I asked her. "Yes, I know it sounds crazy because we just met, but I'm actually looking for someone to be my roommate, and I am rather new in the city. I don't have any friends. I would love for another girl to move here and give me some company," she said. "But I got no money to move to an apartment like this, in a neighborhood like this," I clarified. "Oh, you don't have to worry about anything. You don't have to pay me or anybody. I got the money. All I want is someone to move here. All the money you gotta spend is just the money for your groceries," Leah said. "So, I know it's crazy, but do we have a deal?" she asked. I know my decision should have been different, but instead of rejecting her proposal, I accepted it. The same evening, Leah came with me to my house so that I could pick up some of my belongings. Luckily, I only had to deal with my grandma, who wasn't opposed to me moving out and didn't ask many questions. Leah and I grabbed all my stuff and came back to our apartment. I was so happy that night. It all happened so fast and easy. I thought it was a gift from destiny. Sadly, a couple of days later, I would find out it was a trap. The first night was pretty normal. I spoke to Leah until 11:40 or so, and then I went to sleep in the living room, for there was only one bedroom, and that one belonged to her. I woke up early in the morning and went to work. When Marjorie arrived, I told her everything that happened. She called me crazy and couldn't believe I took such a risky and fast decision, especially considering how weird Leah was. And though I explained why I didn't want to keep living at my grandma's anymore due to Todd, Marjorie understood, but was still a bit worried of me moving in with a stranger just like that. Once I finished work, I went to the house just to notice Leah wasn't there anymore, and neither were her things. However, she did leave a letter that said the following. "Dear Caroline, I'm so sorry I just left like that, but I had to do it. I needed to go back to my city with my family. You know how bad I was feeling, and it wasn't a secret how terrible I looked. I'm hoping that now what haunted me won't be a problem anymore. Do not worry about the apartment. If you want, it belongs to you now. I hope that compensates everything, and I hope that one day you would understand me and forgive me. Signed, yours truly, Leah." Leah wasn't playing. She left the deeds of the apartment in my name. I was totally amazed. That night I celebrated by going out drinking with Marjorie, who still thought everything was weird. She stayed at my house. The next day I had to work. I normally have to work on Saturdays and only have Sundays free. And that Saturday, as soon as I got home from work, I noticed the lights were on. I immediately thought it had been all my fault, so I started to pay more attention. On Sunday, I spent the whole day resting and watching TV. Everything was normal until I woke up the next day. And as I woke up, I noticed I had some bruises on my body. However, I didn't give it too much thought. 5 days passed when I noticed I was starting to look skinnier. When I visited my grandma, she asked me if I was under any diet, but I wasn't. I was still eating the same amount of junk as always. Besides looking skinnier, I was also feeling tired, but I assumed it was just stress. I started looking worse day after day. Marjorie kept asking me what I had, but I didn't even know. I also started to do rather bad at work. Luckily, my friend always had me covered. 3 days ago, I was trying to sleep, but kept hearing noises. It was not the first time I heard them, however. Now the noises are becoming clearer, and it was impossible to confuse them with the sound of the wind. I noticed the noises were coming from the living room, so I decided to go see what it was. I tried turning on the lights, but they weren't working, and I slowly started freaking out and grabbed my phone to light up the way. Once I turned to go into the living room, I saw someone standing there. It looked like a woman, but I couldn't see her face because she was standing from behind. And at first I thought it was Leah, but then I realized it couldn't be, which made me even more anxious. "Who are you?" I screamed at her. The woman didn't answer back. Instead, she started to laugh. "Show yourself!" I screamed at her as I was getting frustrated. She reacted to this and rapidly moved towards me. But she didn't just walk or run towards me. Her feet didn't touch the floor. She flew. As she was close to me, I pointed at her face with my cell phone. She showed me her face as she smiled. She looked familiar, but I couldn't exactly tell. I quickly fainted, and that's the last thing I remembered. The next day, as I woke up, I thought it was all a dream. But then I noticed I was in the living room, and I had been on the floor the whole night, which made me think that it was not a dream. That day, I didn't go to work. Instead, I sent Leah a letter to the address that was written in her previous letter. The day passed so fast, and before I noticed, it was nighttime. I went to sleep but woke up once again around 2 a.m. I kept hearing noises, but this time tried to ignore them. But there was no escape. The door was open. I tried to cover myself with my blankets, but she took them away from me. It was her again, the weird woman I saw the other day. This time, I could see her clearly. I knew who she looked like. She looked just like Leah. She was absolutely beautiful, but freakishly scary. I tried to run away from her, but she didn't let me. She could move faster than me. Eventually, she grabbed me and started to move her mouth as if she was breathing from it. After a few seconds, I noticed she started to look similar to me. I freaked out once again and fainted. And as I woke up the next day, I ran to the mirror and noticed my face was looking gaunt, just like Leah's used to. I was packing my belongings and was about to leave when I noticed that a letter had come through the door. Leah had answered me. I thought the wisest thing I could do was read her letter. There, she explained the reason why she left the house was because it appears to be haunted by this woman. The girl who lived there before her told her that this spirit tries to steal the beauty from other women in order to keep existing, and eventually, she can kill you. She can't really be destroyed, or at least no one knows how to do it. The only way to stop her is to find another victim for her to haunt. And I know it sounds absolutely disgusting. But the fact is that you have to trick someone in order to get your problem solved. But the truth is, I don't want to die. So I'm going to have to get this spirit a new face. I'm going to have to find myself a new job and a new home as well. But I'm not too worried about any of that. I just hope that one day Marjorie forgives me for what I'm about to do.